Like to reconvene to open session, please. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yay. And before we get to approval of the agenda, we need to vote to pull item 9, consideration of approval of updated independent study contract. We're pulling this item to see if we need a public hearing because we are changing the policy. Do you have anything else you need to say about that? Okay, so
approval with the removal of item. I'll move approval of the agenda with the removal of consent calendar number 9.
can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Action on items heard in closed session. Lewis. Sorry, actions heard in closed session. Lewis. Let's do, I'm sorry. What did you want me to do?
Oh, yes. That's there, but you report that out.
Am I okay?
Sir, you're okay. So
Because what did we skip? We're on J.
We're on H.
Huh?
We just approved the agenda.
We
Just
did
G.
that.
Oh,
So we're on H.
right.
Input from the public.
We're on J, actions on items heard in closed session, but Julie and him are conferring on something.
you're on H.
So we skipped the consent calendar.
Consent.
We did
We
consent
just did
calendar.
the-
No, we
pulled
just,
it.
Okay. That's
we approved the agenda.
Oh,
Now we're on consideration.
You're right.
Now we're on
We
H.
did, all we did was
Calendar.
approve the agenda.
oh, okay.
We didn't approve the consent calendar.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
So there's no public comments.
So didn't we do the consent calendar with pull?
No, we just approved the agenda,
Oh, I
but
see.
to remove that item.
Okay, so we need
Yeah.
to approve the
Yeah.
consent calendar. Got it.
Oh, first we need to do public comment, H.
You guys are killing me here. Okay.
Nope, that's-
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, we're on H. Input from the public regarding items not on the open session agenda. And we're not going to do cards today. I'll just take hands. So go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stand back. Our Hall of Fame this year, we haven't done it for about 4 years. And this year we're going to do a January induction on the 20th of January at the Santa Rosa Golf and Country Club. We have 6 inductees. They will be introduced the night before at the boys basketball game against Cardinal Newman. Come on, Tigers. The 6 people that we have up for induction this year is Lee Walker, who graduated from Manly in 1949. He has unfortunately passed, but his family is still very big in the apple business. He has 2 boys and a daughter that are just thrilled. The next one is 1974. Joe Camilleri was a wrestler. That was the first 2 years of our wrestling program here at Anley. His father was a coach, and he was instrumental in making the program what it was. Russ Camilleri was an Olympic wrestler and a Greco-Roman champion and wrestled all over the world. He was incredible. He just passed away last month. Jenny Boca was a track and cross country athlete from 1984. Tiana Helton, my daughter, actually is being inducted for softball. She was okay. Oh yeah, she was an 3-time All-American in college and Hall of Fame. Nick Houts, who is currently the softball coach in Anley. I looked today, this is going to be his 40th year coaching here. It's incredible. I didn't realize that much. And we had, normally we don't induct coaches until they've retired, but there's some circumstances that he needs to go in now. And Mrs. Castleberry is also going in for community service. I don't know, yes. I've had to put that one up multiple times, but she started the alumni, so she has done so many things to help the school, put money into whatever people ask for, and collect clothing during fires, and I mean, it's incredible. So most of you already or have been given or will get shortly an invitation. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you. Please state your name when you come up to the mic too, if you would.
My name is David Perry, and I want to address some statements I made last month at the regular meeting. During your agenda item for dealing with the district's work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, I offered some public statements, comments, and said some things that were not true. And while I've written to the board about those and talked to some of the people that have been most directly affected by that, I wanted to both acknowledge and apologize for that publicly. Specifically, two of the things I said was that most of the actions being taken regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion were not in the team, and that HR had not done enough to approve the bottom supervisors, thus requiring outreach action for results. Those are statements that I made without giving them enough care and review what I was saying. And so I want to apologize for that here. Everyone who is actually here. I do want to thank Mia for meeting with me after that meeting a couple days, and very graciously talking with me and helping me better understand what she had been doing with regards to that position. And I will say without qualification, what she was doing without anything that I might have done was more than sufficient for reaching the goals in both places. So I want to apologize for everyone who was adversely affected, including those who were maligned by my statements, those who were misled by my statements, and those who were distracted from other important work in having to do that.
Thank you very much for your comment. Any other items not on open session agenda? Okay. Now we need to vote on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Now, action on items heard in closed session. Lewis.
So we had a very difficult and challenging decision to make in closed session, and as a result, as a trustee, I move that we deny the readmission in student case 4-2223.
Do I
I'll
have a
second.
second? Do we need discussion? We've already, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are on the annual reorganization of the board. This is the time we choose officers for that board. For this board. I need to ask for nominations for president of our school board. Yes, Louis.
I would like to move Julie Aiello for another term as board president.
Okay, I will accept the nomination, and it is time for any public comments. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. We do need a second.
Second that.
Okay. And any public comments concerning this item? Okay, discussion from the board.
I'm supportive of Julie doing another term this year.
Microphone.
Oh, the microphone is on.
Sorry.
This year was a tough year for you, Julie, and
It was.
you didn't get to president very much. And I'm in support of you having another round at it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you very much. I am your new president as well as your old one. I will now ask for nominations for vice president for the board.
I would like to nominate Louis Buckner for vice president.
I know it's really hard, guys,
Need,
but I'm not
uh,
picking you up at all on your
I would like
microphones.
to nominate Louis Buckner.
I'd like to second that.
Great. And do we have any public comments about that nomination? No discussion by the board?
I need to ask him if he's willing.
Yes. Are you willing to accept that
I-
nomination?
I
Louis?
am willing.
Okay.
I'm
Any
humbled.
discussion by the board? I'm sorry, Louis, I just assumed.
Yeah, no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Louis Buckner, you are our new vice president. I will now ask for nominations for clerk
I would
for
like
the board.
I would like to move Sean Chernilla for clerk.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Any discussion on the board?
You good with that?
Yeah, I'll accept.
You will accept? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have our new board members.
And you and I should change.
Because now we're-
Oh.
Sean needs to be here.
Yes. we
Wow,
do.
it even comes
Yeah.
with like a
Yeah.
throne position and
Yeah.
everything. Dang. Well, this is important.
You sit where Lewis was and Debbie. can sit where you are.
That's right.
No, we just here. Oh, I don't.
Name and go like this, so I don't have to remove it.
All right, I'm gonna come back to my laptop.
You are welcome. Bye. Bye. By the way, welcome, Walker. We heard the news and I was very thrilled.
Okay, we are on appointment of the superintendent as secretary to the board. Do you want to say anything about this? No. Do I have a motion?
I move that the superintendent be the secretary of the board.
And I need a second. All those in favor, including our students, please. Aye. And opposed? You win. Okay, authorized signatures. This is just to let everyone know that the three of us and Chris have the authorization to sign things, okay? Do we have to vote on that?
Authorization.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay, so I need a motion that we are authorized to sign.
I move that our three officers, president, vice president, and clerk, as well as Chris, our
Thank you.
superintendent, are the authorized signatories.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, including our students?
Aye.
And opposed? Great. And election of voting representative and alternate for process of filling vacancies on the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organization. Chris?
Yeah, so each year the board is to elect a representative and an alternate to serve as individuals designated to cast the board's vote in the process of filling vacancies on the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organizations. Jeannie, in her many years of experience, has been a part of this conversation when this item comes up at the yearly reelection. So I'd like to give Jeannie an opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
I actually serve on this committee and have served on this committee, the school district or reorganization committee for committee for school district organization. And I've served on this committee now for, I think, going on 18 years. And what this committee does is it's a group of we are 11 members, 2 from each supervisorial district, and then 1 member at large. So 11 of us. And our job is to serve the county on anything when it comes to organization of school district boundaries, school district reorganization when it comes to any sort of unification issue. We've had quite a number of issues with regards to Voting Rights Act. This last year, we just did another one for Rincon Valley School District. There's a gentleman in Southern California who has deemed himself the most powerful man in California when it comes to Voting Rights Act. And any school district, or frankly, any community, any city council who doesn't have themselves set up in area voting, he goes after them and looks for a handout of $30,000 if they aren't set up with area voting. You'll note that our school district is set up in area voting, and we were smart and did it ahead of time without him coming after us. So we didn't have to pay him any money. And if your district or your city council hasn't done that, pretty much he goes after them. And so our committee is the one that helps. It's our responsibility to make sure that the school districts have followed the law. We don't decide for them what those areas will be. We just make sure that those districts have followed the law with regards to setting up their areas. And that's all our role is. And we have to have meetings in those districts. So we've had quite a few meetings over the years with all of the districts. Granted, there are 40 school districts in our area as well as the county. So ultimately 41. There are 41 voting districts. So when a district So when there's a vote that has to take place, there are 41 districts. I will tell you, there was just 5 districts that had to be voted upon this year. I'm sad to say 7 of those 41 districts voted for those 5 districts. Every one of those 41 districts got a ballot, and 7 of them put in their names. So in those cases, when that happens, the County Office of Education Superintendent Amy Carter, she ultimately makes the decision of who is the person that's going to serve on our committee, which I think is kind of sad that only 7 districts voted. So currently I am our district's voting representative, and as well as one of our representatives for the 5th district. I'd like to recommend that somebody else is our voting member, but I'm going to ask that if you get a ballot, you better vote because it's our job. I mean, it's a tiny little job that you have to do every couple of years, but it's only fair that you get a stamp on your envelope. All you got to do is mark the ballot and mail it in. So
Thank you, Jeannie.
I was one of those 7 people that mailed my ballot in. But it's not a big job to do, but it is a responsibility. But I think I'd like to recommend that somebody else do it.
I would be happy to be the voting member. I'm familiar with the committee.
Microphones, guys.
And actually that sparks a question that I've had, because do we have inboxes at the district office? I've never seen one. How do we, because we must get some mail. And when these things come in, I bet a lot of districts don't necessarily have a way of
It goes to your home.
distributing.
It goes to your home.
It doesn't go to the
No,
district,
it goes
Okay.
to your home.
because previously it went to, because I was a voting member previously in my previous
The
role.
County Office of Education mails it directly to your home.
So at this time, the board's requested to elect a representative and an alternate as representatives to vote to fill vacancies on the Sonoma County Committee of School District Organization.
So I would like to then nominate Debbie as our voting member, and then usually it's the president that is the alternate. So I would like to nominate Debbie and then Julie as our alternate.
Okay, I accept.
So then we need a
Debbie,
second.
do you accept?
Sean.
All right, I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Number 5, review and or consider resources that define and clarify the board's governance as stated in board bylaw 9005. Chris.
So this item is built into the agenda when the boards do reorganization each year. So the public can reference any governance standards, policies that pertain to how the governance team is held to accountability of standards. So that's included for your reference in the board agenda. And additionally, the board met, the governance team actually met during an open session special board meeting on December 6th to review and revise the governance handbook, which was approved during the consent calendar approval. So if you're interested in seeing those revisions, feel free to check out that document attached to the agenda. There's no action needed.
We don't need any action. Are there any questions or anything from the board? Any questions from our community? Okay. Consideration of approval of board meeting calendar for 2024.
So this is a second read. We talked a little bit about this during our last regular meeting, and this is the opportunity for the board to hear public comment regarding and consider the recommended board meeting calendar for 2024. So I recommend that the board approve the calendar, but now you can take your next action.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And any questions from the board? Yes, Louis.
At, I think it was our last meeting, we talked about holding some board meetings at the El Molino.
Microphone. I'm sorry, guys, to
Fine.
keep making you do it.
Um,
We can't hear
we
you at
talked about,
home.
holding some meetings maybe once a quarter or at least twice a year in Forestville. And Chris, you had said you would get back to us with, because there was a question about cost.
Mhm.
So what does it cost?
So the recommended calendar would propose to host 5 meetings at the Forestville campus. The way that it was organized, there are a few months in which the Board of Trustees holds several regular meetings to meet compliance. So we broke down, Jenny broke down the costs associated, and this included regular hourly rate, OT rate, mileage, travel costs, hours for setup, hours to break down, per employee costs, and lost work time. I think the most important total figure that I heard the board was looking for was total cost, and that would be if all of these individuals, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 who are a part of regular setup, continue to set up, that cost would be approximately $740, and lost work time, including travel, would be 23.5. Considering the value that we heard in the last discussion with the first read, I recommend that we do host these 5 meetings that are recommended in this calendar at the Forestville campus.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Jeannie.
You said $700. Is that $700 for the year, for a month, or it's not
Meeting.
clear?
Per meeting.
My understanding, Jenny, and you can chime in, that would be per meeting.
Kind of per meeting. The hope would be to have it fully set up and not break it down meeting to meeting, and that it would have minimal cost. So yes and no, it just depends. Sometimes we have events in the library, so we would need to break it down. That is
Like the highest of
the
high.
highest end of it, I think, would be that $700. It doesn't always take us all 7 people to set up either. Today it was 4. Plus our custodial staff comes in right before us. We only have 1 custodian at that campus. So whether I have to travel somebody there to help is unclear. But I think what I did was the high end of the spectrum for you.
Yeah, think of this as like a not to exceed amount.
Any other questions?
So you're saying it's $700 a meeting and $23 in travel?
No. I indicated the 2 figures that I thought were most notable: total cost, and Jenny included lost work time, including travel time between sites. So the overtime would only be calculated if it happened after the employee's normal workday, right? That's why I gave you the high mark. But if it did happen during the workday, potentially, then that time could, with all of those employees, should they all engage in the setup, was approximated at about 20 hours.
Okay, what about cleanup?
That includes it.
You guys probably see that I break it down after every meeting, and our custodial staff all come in and swoop it up. Depending on how the library is being used at that campus, there might not be a need to break it down. We can break it down the following morning. What we're looking at is whether we have enough equipment to go over there to stay over there. So we wouldn't have to travel all the microphones. We're only putting 1 microphone on each of your shared tables. You used to have 2. So I think we have enough to share over there and pipe into the system. We can bring the extra TV that we have. So we've got some things in mind to keep it as set up as possible. So the costs are minimal. At the time I gave it to Chris was, hey, this is what it could look like if we have to travel this equipment every single time, back and forth. So, and then the lost hours are basically all of the hours that our team would be spending traveling versus, being in our offices doing our other regular duties. And that was just, again, on the high end of everything. It could take us less. I just don't know.
Any other questions? Do we have any public comment on this issue? Yes, Loretta.
Yes, the goal is to still do everything as we are currently doing it, which is why I keep telling everybody to talk in their microphones.
Noted.
Yes. Can you state your name too, please?
Hi, Paige Greco. I teach Elmolino. I teach here now. I live in Forestville. And I just want to reiterate that I think it's a great idea. And I really, really hope that the board considers adopting this policy, and that I think it would be seen as a gesture of respect to those of us who live out in river communities, and in making these proceedings more accessible to people who would otherwise have a much longer commute to get here and might otherwise be disincentivized to participate quite as much. I want to reiterate what I said at a previous meeting, which is that the notion that just putting these meetings and making them accessible on the internet. You really think they need this? Yes. Need it for the people. Okay, I needed the people who are actually watching the thing I'm talking about. Great. I want to reiterate that the notion that just making it available on the internet doesn't always include everyone, and that there are a number of places in our communities that don't have reliable internet access, and where even making, like this sort of, gesture to accessibility doesn't include them, and that having a meeting that was out at the Elmolino campus would be at least a gesture in that direction that I think is sorely overdue.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify? So it's not a policy, it's a yearly calendar. So this would be revisited on a yearly basis. So
Fair,
I just wanted to, for the record, just to ensure that it's something that the board reviews in a first and second read each year and would be revised. So it's just the calendar.
Fair, I misspoke.
That's okay.
Any other discussion needed from board? No, we're ready to vote. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Cool. So 5 meetings. That's for 5 meetings.
Correct.
a year.
Sure, yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
It doubles up.
Long
Yeah.
overdue.
Okay, report. Student board representatives, and we have a new member. Walker Solanos. Welcome, Walker. Would you like Karis to go first? Okay. Karis, thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. So this week is definitely the calm before the storm here on campus. Next week is our winter finals right before winter break. Since we know finals are typically not students' favorite time of year, surprise, the leadership class has been doing our best to plan some fun this week. We're in the midst of a holiday spirit week, which will end with our winter club day on Friday, in which many of our 40 student-run clubs will gather in the quad to sell winter treats and to raise money. It's been just 3 weeks since Thanksgiving break, so not too much has happened on campus. One of the highlights was our talent show last Friday. This is always one of my personal favorite events that we do on campus throughout the entire year, because not only is it a great opportunity to see the talents of a variety of Annalise students, I'm always just so impressed with how uplifting and supportive the student audience is. And I really believe that the talent show highlights some of the best parts of our student body, and this year was definitely no exception. January is shaping up to be a very busy month for the leadership class. 8th graders from a variety of feeder middle schools are coming in to get tours from leadership students and receive information about registration and what they can expect for their first year of high school. And that's happening the week of January 29th to February 2nd. This is the second time we've done this. Additionally, our first ever winter dance is going to be on the 27th of January. That's going to be held in the gym here. Dances are typically planned by the junior class, but the winter dance is going to be organized by the sophomores this year, and they've been doing a really great job so far. I'd like to end by addressing a concern that was brought to me by a student at the end of last week's student council meeting. So according to this student, gender-neutral restrooms on school campuses are required to have the correct appropriate signage. Our gender-neutral restrooms are in the small gym, and they have handicap signage, but not gender-neutral signage. And I didn't get the chance to go down there and verify that myself, but I still wanted to bring it to the board's attention as this was a concern brought to me directly by the student body. So I really wanted to kind of get that out there. Thank you so much and have a great holiday. And by the way, I just want to say that I will be excusing myself a little bit early at 8 o'clock so I can make it to the end of the speech and debate meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Karis. Walker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Walker. Laguna has had a much more chill week or month. We've had a number of events. We've had a presentation from the Sonoma Water. They gave it on different jobs in the field and like resources for getting into internships and various jobs. They did a fun personality quiz that like tells you what type of job would be good for you based on your personality traits. And then students got together in table groups based on like each job. And they did like fun, unique hands-on activities based on those jobs. There was also the study skills workshop, and the date is mislabeled on here. They taught us about like time management skills. They had us fill out weekly schedule visualizers to practice allocating our time and planning out the week, to like show like what time is taken up by school, work, extracurricular activities, etc., and then figure out how much time it would take for us to accomplish the various goals that we've set for ourselves, and then allocating that time on the schedule. And overall, just like getting us to start thinking about what's like really important to set aside time for. So throughout this semester, we've been working on the semester lit magazine. We've been taking assignments like writing projects from English and creative writing class, as well as some other student works, and putting them together into this. Also credit to Iris for making this lovely art. And I have been told to pass around. Wait, what? Yeah, oh, here. And additionally, we've also been having monthly meetings with Anita, the DEI coordinator, on nonviolent communication. We've basically been learning the basics of it, and like about how it's about de-escalating conflicts and like learning how to tell people how you feel without placing blame or making judgments, and separating statements about how you feel from statements about other people or things. And also recently, we learned about like human responses to shame, and also basic emotions or afflictions. And we watched a video of a baby explaining what they are and like how they relate to facial expressions. And that's about it. Thank you so much, and have a lovely holiday.
Thank you. You both did an excellent job. Thank you so much. Principal reports. Who would like to go first? Thank you, Greg.
Okay. Any better?
This one's better.
Okay, thank you. Before I start, I do want to send out a couple of thank yous first, to Phoenix, who was our board rep, but just want to say thank you to them for the amazing job that they have done. And also thank you to Walker for stepping up and filling in. So very excited about that. All right. Feels like it's been a while. I missed the last board meeting, but just some brief updates here. Last month, we began our school site council meetings. So we had the last Wednesday of November, we had our first site council meeting. We had a very, very good turnout, and just, kind of went over the overall basics, but Laura Schmidt and Sheila Richmond did attend and started the process of some of the community asset mapping. That's been talked about here. So that was a very unique process, and looking forward to continuing with site council and that process with Laura and Sheila. Brief update with the regional parks. We've been going back and forth and communicating about getting students into their programs. Very exciting. We have not only a couple students, we're looking at getting into the 18 to 24-year-old program that Mark talked about when he was here, but they also reached out with another opportunity for a student to get into a graphic design area, working with creating logos and signage for the different agencies in the county. So just a brief update there, just really exciting working with them and trying to get students opportunities. I had the opportunity to attend a Big Picture Learning Conference 2 weeks ago now, and actually saw Dale there as well. But it was, they're always great to go to. They're energizing, always learn a lot. I think the biggest takeaway is the opportunity to go visit other schools and not just observe, but we really got to dig in and help them try to solve some problems of practice. And through those conversations, what we're finding is, in terms of where we're at Laguna High School, very similar stages as a lot of other schools around the country who are doing this work, and just the time to get an outside perspective and problem solve and talk through is incredibly valuable. So it was a great conference. Last Thursday, we had our FAFSA parent night. Our 10,000 Degrees liaison hosted the parent night and put that on. So when parents attended, not only did they get information about FAFSA and how it's a graduation requirement, but also begin the work of setting up portals and entering information and all that good stuff. So thank you to 10,000 Degrees for all the work that they do. And let's see here. Just want to touch real quick. Walker handed out the Lit Mag. Miss McNamara, who put this together, did an absolutely amazing job. So shout out to her, and also to our students who, as you go through and read that, you'll see some of those things, and they're incredibly honest, authentic, vulnerable. So kudos to the students who put their works in there. And next Friday, the 22nd, we're having our annual holiday dinner at 11:45 a.m. But all of you district office members, board members should have received your official invite. If you have not, consider this your official invite. But this is a tradition. I was talking with Miss Warner today, somewhere around 40 plus years, I want to say. So very, 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 very cool. So we look forward to seeing everybody there if you can make it. And lastly, this time of year is always a little bittersweet for us at Laguna. We have 5 students who will be graduating early. And I can say specifically with these 5, first I want to say congratulations because they have earned it. But just watching them over the last year and a half, and I think this group really empowers like resilience and grit and determination. And just watching their overall growth over the last year and a half has been really, really tremendous and really cool to see. So obviously we're extremely excited that they're graduating, but we're sad to see them go. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Yes. And thank you for the invite.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chuck Wade, principal at Annalee High School. As I believe most everybody here knows, I'm part of a new admin team at Annalee, and I think we're just coming up on our 4-month mark with students and staff. And I have to say, I never before understood how many things can happen in a month. In all seriousness, though, it's flown by. Days have been full and satisfying, learning a lot with the support of some really amazing folks I feel super lucky to work with. I can be brief because Karis is so thorough. But since I'm new here too, I really want to highlight some of the work that our newest staff members at Annalee have done over the last couple months since I was here last. Sarah Piccolo is a new culinary teacher. She collaborated with Alma Roman Diaz students, or their students collaborated together to make tamales. And I believe they were the ones served at lunch today. I heard students in the quad talking about, yeah, I made those, which was pretty darn cool. Pretty exciting collaborative duo for me. I think we're going to see a lot more from them. Jessica Lyons, also new in our cafeteria, is obviously trying new things, and students are super excited about the new menu options. We had our winter choir show last night, snowed in. Brand new teacher, Spencer Burrows, led that, super successful, pretty full house, even competing with the start of the basketball season. So that was pretty cool to see as well. We have a new woodshop teacher, Clay Pafford, has a student enterprise project going. You may have seen his students are building and offering several finishes for shelving projects in the shape of Christmas trees or snowflakes. They're sold out, unfortunately. I didn't get one of those, so we're too late. But those are really beautiful, and I'm seeing them come out of the shop. Omar Cortez is our new counselor. He has been hosting, really going above and beyond to host a number of groups supporting our students situated farthest from opportunity. His work is really helping to ensure that those students' voices are being heard. And he's helped us think through how to make sure that our ideas about responding to student behaviors provide high accountability as well as high support. Speaking of accountability and support, Sheila Richmond, also new, and our new wellness coordinator, has also been a huge help in designing meaningful interventions for students that feel like significant consequences, but also help to support real behavioral change. So we're super excited about that. Finally, Ashley Vilchis led our faculty professional development session. I think that was yesterday, with support of our veteran Jared Brown, introduced staff to tools available to support our English learners, and in particular helped staff think about what we can do to help our multilingual learners be successful during finals next week. So that's just a few examples of some of the ways that our newest staff have really gotten involved in the campus. In all cases, I think with tons of support from our amazing veterans. Couldn't have happened otherwise, and I'm really grateful for that collaboration and mentorship. Before I close, I want to say on behalf of the new admin team that we would invite you all to join us at Wednesday after finals. We'll have a taco truck on campus, and please join us for a taco. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Association reports. West County teachers. Oh, hi, Lily.
Can't see you guys where I situated myself. I had to bring the kid along to do English homework. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lily Smedshammer, president of the, is this set up for Greg? What's going on here? President of the West Sonoma County Teachers Association. We had our third session of negotiations on Monday, and I want to report that it went well, and the association appreciates the respectful, collaborative tone. We are optimistically looking forward to discussing the compensation aspects of our contract in late February. In light of the events in nearby Santa Rosa City schools, I want to talk to you about school safety tonight. Did you know that California is one of the few states with a constitutional provision guaranteeing a right to safety at school for students and staff? Many of our students come to us from out of district because their families seek a greater sense of safety during their high school years. We want to ensure that that reputation continues to be a draw for us. However, the staff has expressed concern over the current state of discipline at our campuses. In a recent WSCTA survey, only 14% of our teachers reported that they agreed with how their discipline referrals have been handled this year. We need to heed the warning of Santa Rosa and not lose our prior practice of balancing restorative practices with concrete consequences. Our AP teachers have a concern with the recent change in policy regarding access to fee waivers for advanced placement exams. Recently, our testing coordinator had their permissions removed to see which students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Because of this, students impacted by poverty will have to pay the $100 fee per exam up front, limiting many students' ability to take the test. We're seeking a solution that will restore access to the fee waiver prior to payment. This is an equity issue for our low-income students. We want more access to AP classes and exams for all, not less, but we have confidence and believe the district can find a solution. We will be emailing a letter to the trustees, district, and site administration that has been signed by every single one of our AP teachers with a detailed explanation of the situation. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Lily. CSEA? Okay, great. Board reports. Debbie. Jeannie.
Yes, thank you. Julie and I have been very busy. We have done quite a bit of visitation to visit all of our administrators, Chuck, Gianna, Trish at Anley, and Greg at Laguna. Oops, I gotta put my glasses on. I can't read this without, sorry. Last night, Julie and I went to the choir concert. Tomorrow, we're going to be visiting with the office staff here at Anley. And Friday, we'll be visiting with Nicole Wilkinson. I had the luxury of working with one of the ag teachers on a project with their plant science class. I also met with one of the Anley teachers last week. I think that's it, but very busy.
Thank you. Ron.
Nothing to report at this time.
Lewis.
As your new vice president, I have nothing to report.
And I just have to say ditto for Jeannie. Thank you. And superintendent report.
I'm going to start with my employee recognitions for this evening, and I'd like to give big thanks to Karen Lamb here for all of her hard work and diligence in creating our board agendas. She does an excellent job of front loading and creating standing items and assisting with the creation of my ed services items. In addition, she supports the cabinet in revising recommended CSBA policies that we present to the board for approval. Our board meetings truly run through Karen, so we thank her for that. Another district office employee whose hard work sometimes goes unnoticed, but was noticed by many recently, and they shared this with me, as Jennifer Guerrero, our payroll technician. Jennifer, she's probably one of the most important people in the district because she's sure that all of our employees get paid on time. Many of our new employees mentioned to Mia that their appreciation for Jennifer Guerrero is related to her kindness, patience, and that she's been quick to respond. The next teachers I'd like to recognize teamed up with former Annalee teacher Andy Del Monte to continue the amazing tradition of putting forth a light show outside. And you've all seen it. It's great. Last year, I was able to bring some family down who'd never had a chance to experience it. And I tend to do that again this year as well. But Walt Hayes, Brian Miller, really appreciate them working with former Annalee teacher Andy Del Monte. And we also appreciate Andy for coming back and continuing to help us out with the amazing light show. Jane Mays. So Jane mentioned this to me in passing, that she started a club called the Best Buddies Club. And I think the intention behind this was to help with some of the issues that we've had in terms of vandalism and some of the student discipline challenges and maybe a lack of respect for the campus. And this is an international organization. She fell in love with the club when she learned about it. She recognized some of the students really getting behind what they're doing. And each month they're having a fun activity where Gen Ed students are paired with SPED students. And in November, they had a fall fling. And this was a dance on a Saturday that mimicked homecoming for SPED kids and Gen Ed kids. And Jane quoted to Mia, "I can't even begin to convey the joy the kids felt during the event. It was really inclusive and really fun." When SPED parents came to pick up their students, they were overwhelmed. So, I just want to thank Jane for that. And she also did an activity in one of her academic support classes in which the students wrote notes on the bathrooms to the custodians, appreciating them for their hard work. Thought that was really cool. Jamie Malone doing some great work in her social science class. As they're getting into the revolution, industrial revolution factories unit, I presume. The second period world history class made 213 sandwiches for the homeless. So, you know, this holiday season is about giving. One of the things that I attended this month was the dance show out at El Molino, and it was amazing. The choreography was on point. I was told Jolene this right away. The depiction of emotion was incredible, and obviously the students were awesome. I'd like to recognize last Shannon Lawey, member of the DEI committee, our newest member. Every time I'm at Laguna, I always have great conversations with Shannon, and her love and respect for the students is just clear in the way that she speaks about them. She lights up when she's talking about her students, and she's also not afraid to get after them and hold them accountable when Mr. Alexander's not on campus. So she's the first to chase them down and get them back into class, but then love them up on the back end of that. So we really appreciate the work that she does. Want to address some concerns that I've heard regarding West County transportation. We had a few late buses, as we know. That happens from time to time, and I had an opportunity to touch base with Chad Barksdale, the director, and the specific situation in which I saw email correspondence had to do with a communication snafu, and as he noted it, and there were some clarification details around that it was understood that students were left on the Cider Rail Highway, but they were at school. And, Chad acknowledged that they're doing the best that they can. And with an average of 25 drivers short on any given day, he understands the importance of being on time in terms of supporting the students' transportation needs. So I appreciated Chad's acknowledgement and him corresponding with one of the parents that emailed us. The other thing I addressed with Chad was we had some concerns about some transient homeless adults around one of our stops, and it was suggested that we could look at changing the route. So Chad and I are going to be discussing that, the feasibility of that. But I do appreciate the community letting us know when there are issues. I've been in communication with Mr. Wade, and I know that he's working with his office staff, and we'll be continuing to remind teachers that when students do go directly to class, when the bus arrives late, to send them to the office, communicate with Gina. If the bus company doesn't always call to inform us, we understand that. Again, that's a staffing issue, but we can always call and verify if we don't necessarily want to take the word of the student directly, right? So there are some options with that. And then we need to remind our students that if the bus is late, don't go directly to class. Report to the office first. We'll work to get that excused. So it's ongoing. We had our JPA council meeting this morning. As you know, I sit on a number of different councils, and I thought Chad was receptive. I forwarded these emails and he responded to me right away. I think he's doing the best that he can, and I wish that there was a solution to some of their staffing challenges, because I think that's a huge part of the issues when we have late buses. Let's go back to my doc. Soup's on. So in my informals with the Teachers Association, which are with Lily and Leslie, I think it was in October, maybe Lily and I and Leslie set the first meeting for Soup's on, and she challenged me to make a pozole. However, I was unable to do that, so I bought it, and it was delicious. Really well received, really well attended, and maybe next time I can make my own pozole. But I did promise them the kombucha squash soup next time around, so that's going to be homemade. My wife and I will do that. But teachers were awesome. It was really just a good vibe. I didn't get a ton of questions about school business. A lot of teachers asked me about how my wife's doing and how I'm feeling about becoming a new father here in the near future. And I just felt like, again, it was well received, and I appreciated the collegial conversations during that Soup's on. Labor partners, our meetings are going really well. We've got 3, as Lily mentioned, with the Teachers Association. I thought we had an extremely productive first session with CSEA as well. So looking forward to continuing that process. And I want to thank the board for a productive special meeting that last Wednesday on 12/6. I thought that our dialogue, our conversations, our work as a governance team is growing better each day. And I want to appreciate you for your thoughtful and respectful conversations and contributions to the revisions of the governance handbook. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. You're on facilities, maintenance, and technology. Number 1, Measure A bond and budget project updates. Yay.
Yay. This is my monthly routine item that I give to you regarding our projects. I wasn't here last month, so I'm going to walk through them. I'm not going to pull the document up over here. It's linked to the agenda. So just to go through the projects, Project AA27, which is the Annalee High School main building HVAC. Really great news to report here. On December 1st, we received DSA approval. That is a viable project for summer. We are starting the leaseback process for that, as well as some other projects, and I'll show you that in a second. But hoorah! AC is coming. Project AA28, which is the small gym, as well as classrooms L1 and L2 for the HVAC and roofing. We are still in back check at DSA. DSA is being a little difficult with our older facilities and wanting to ensure that we're dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's. Plus, we identified some additional scope that we needed to add because the interior of the gym, the siding needs to be replaced on the inside, as well as it looks like the floor is, it's not failing, it just needs to be resurfaced. So we've added that scope at this point. So we're anticipating approval in March. That would still be a viable project for summer. AA29, Annalee cafeteria, HVAC and roofing as well. The next several HVAC and roofing projects, we're still in back check. We're hoping we'll have approval by February and that these will still be viable for summer, this coming summer. Same with the woodshop building, industrial arts building, as well as the main gym roofing and HVAC. We're in process with the door security lock project in working with Asa Abloy, which is our key consultant and lock consultant, as well as folding in QKA to help us develop a set of district standards. With keying, you can adopt standards so that we don't have to go with and or equal. Keying is a very particular trade, and we don't necessarily want that to go to an and or equal. And Kevin can probably help me explain the design specifications a little bit more, but there's a process in which we have to go through and bring that information to the board so that you can adopt a resolution that allows us to what we call sole source certain products. And it's done specifically so that we can have like products across the campus, and locks are one of those pieces. The new CTE classroom building facility, or the classroom building, we've finished schematic design. This is where we, as kind of an architect team and a district administration team, pull away from working with the staff, and we're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So right now we're hiring all the additional consultants. We have to hire a commissioning agent. We have to hire a hazmat company to come out and evaluate the buildings that we're going to demolish. We have to submit California Geological Survey to CGS, and we have to complete a fire flow test, along with setting up some meetings with our IT staff and to go over interior furnishes and finishes with us. So that process, while we're not actively working with staff, there's a lot of stuff moving behind the scenes to keep this project active. Forestville Building C, which was started out as a roof replacement project, you approved the change order for the HVAC. The HVAC units have arrived, and this project mobilizes next Wednesday. Greg, I haven't told you that, but they'll be on site next Wednesday. Everything will stay intact until school is out on the 22nd, and then they will feverishly work over the break to change out all the HVAC units and have everything up and operational by the time staff and students return on the 8th. Temporary housing is on hold. Building F, HVAC and roofing at Forestville, we anticipate submitting to DSA by the end of the calendar year, so December 30th, 2023. Forestville gym HVAC, we're still in the investigation stage. There's just a lot of projects in queue right now, so we have a lot going on. This is an important one. I want to make sure everyone hears this one. AA 42, which is the Sunset Tap Pedestrian Enhancements Project. That's where the district, the board has committed to providing $20,000 to the city to help pay for the crosswalk between the back of the gym and the Student Services Center. That project is in design at the city level. Believe it or not, the city has to go through their own bureaucracy to get their own projects approved. So they're in the middle of their own process for that, but we hope to hear from them soon. I had been in contact with them about PG&E coming out and doing some work preliminary. I haven't heard from them yet, so I imagine I will be hearing from them soon. But no news is not necessarily good or bad news. It just means they're going through their own process. And the Annalise Stadium repairs we're in the process of working with a company called Miscus to do an internal pipe repair. And we're just waiting to get on their schedule. We're hoping that repair will buy us enough time to deal with some of the longer term issues that we'll be talking about in subsequent items on the agenda. With respect to the budget, just to kind of give you guys an idea of where we're at the beginning of the fiscal year, we had about 46 million and some change available in the county treasury. Of that 46 million, roughly, I'm going to just call it 20 million has been allocated towards the projects that you guys have already approved for us. Those projects are at the estimate phase. They are not at the bid phase, which would put us at roughly 26 million of money we have in hand that is unallocated. We also have a Series D that will eventually need to be sold, in roughly 24 million would be the net proceeds from that. So right now we have about $50 million that's unallocated. That's not entirely true because we haven't allocated everything to the CTE classroom facility because we don't want to deplete all of the funds that we currently have available to us. So just be thinking about where that project's going to fall. We're looking at roughly 20 million of unallocated funds if we fund all the projects. If I were to add in the CTE building, I know I'm overcomplicating this and I apologize. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows as we walk into the next conversation, it's about 20 million that we don't have as long as projects are coming in at or around what we've budgeted. And we know that the cost of constructions has been increasing. Goods and services are increasing. So we have a very volatile construction market right now. So another little exciting thing, if you go to the third tab, I know you guys don't have it on there, or maybe if you have it pulled up and you scroll all the way to the bottom, that's the project's bidding tab. And you'll now see that there's a lot of information populated in there as to we are starting the bidding process. We're hoping that the board will be amenable to the lease back for all of the HVAC and roofing for the projects mentioned that I've already mentioned. And we have set up a schedule for that to start this Sunday. So we're required to advertise. We'll be issuing out the RFP, and we'll be requesting proposals in early February with hopes of bringing a selection or recommendation to you in February at the February 21st board meeting. So happy to answer any questions. I know that was a lot of info.
I want to make sure I understood what you were saying. So there's $20 million that's going to be left unallocated from the bond money after we've already put all the money we need for the CTE building, after we've already allocated that. So that
Correct.
building, we have the money set aside to do the whole project, plus all these other projects that you just went through.
Correct. Currently, you've allocated, you've approved the budget that we've allocated to all the projects in the round one funding.
Which includes
That includes
CTE
the
building.
CTE building. The only reason you don't see it funded on the spreadsheet is because it'll put us into the negative category. And so that's why we're not funding the hard construction. Negative in the sense that we haven't sold Series D yet. Series D is still over here. We just haven't pulled it down yet. Does that make sense?
So you're counting on the Series E money as part of the available pot. You just haven't sold it yet.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
As it gets closer to us needing those funds is when I'll go to Andrew and Chris and go, I need more money. They're used to me saying that.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other questions? Regarding the Sunset Taft pedestrian walkway, I've had conversations with Tony Bertolero at the city, and her estimate is that it should be completed by August.
Yes. They estimate a lot of things just like we do. So she told me that as well. So I'm glad that you've had some conversation because I know you there's funding coming from the
Right. Once the project is complete, they will get funding from the county. So the MOU that went through the county and through the city of Sebastopol Council indicates that it should be completed by August. But there's room. If they run into problems, that's okay too.
Yeah, we also
They'll
told
get the
them
funding.
we'd be happy if they wanted to start construction during the school year that we would accommodate that because we felt that the crosswalk was vital. So thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we're on number 2, consideration of approval of second round of Measure A bond project priorities.
All right, this is me again. I have a presentation, so let me go ahead and share my screen. I also have Kevin Chapin here from Quatoki Quack Architects. We just call him QKA for short because who wants to say that? So we're going to kind of tag team this together. Let me just get the presentation going. Can you guys see everything up there? Okay. You're on.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for having us tonight. This is our update for the facilities master plan and potential second round projects. Next slide. So we always kind of like to start back to where, remind everyone where we started before we start talking about where we possibly could be going. So back in 2011, we did do a facilities master plan, and we had, at that time, identified about $68 million in needs on the campus. Escalate that to today's figures, that's $160 million. So there's a lot of need on this campus, and we know we don't have all the funds to do that at this point. And so we're trying to look at these projects and make the best use of the money that we do have that's going to make the biggest impact. So back in 2010, we did a whole bunch of projects, including the PVs at both campuses, the stadiums at both Annalee and Forestville, the new band room here at Annalee, Performing Arts Center over at Forestville, as well as a lot of HVAC and roofing projects at all the different sites. I'm going to kind of skip these because Jenny just kind of went through these in pretty detailed order here. We did, like Jenny said, we did just recently get approval for the HVAC at the main building. So that was a good thing for us and good thing for you. I think all the teachers will be pretty happy about those. We have presented quite a few times about facilities. The first set of rounds we went over twice, actually in October of 2022, as well as June of this year.
This is just a more of a reminder that we've presented a lot of times our facility needs at varying levels. And I've linked, because they're all pretty green, each of the presentations to this document for anyone who may want to go through those later.
So now on to what could possibly be the second round projects and kind of what we looked at and what we're recommending. So the first project would be a modernization and addition to the East Wing. The main reason to do this is to try to bring all the science classrooms into that building. L1 and L2 are currently chemistry rooms are really kind of too small for standards to really teach effectively. And to bring those into a new modernized expanded East Wing, as well as bring room 212 from the main building into there to really try to create a science building. No.
Correct. They're
the curved
they're right here.
Yeah. And then L2 and L1 are directly on the other side of this wall. So what we do with L1 and L2, since it would be emptied, since we're moving the science over there, would to bring video production in there. So it'd be make a better use of that space of video production, because smaller rooms that could be used as little studios, recording studios, screen rooms, that kind of space.
And they're also in pretty close proximity to the existing green room, which is right here in that corner of the library.
Yeah.
If anyone knew that.
Yeah, to kind of bring all their facilities all close together as well. As well, along with this modernization, bringing those 3 science classrooms into this building, we'd modernize the existing classrooms. You know, were recently fairly done, so there are a lot smaller modernizations to the existing classrooms. We convert all the toilet rooms, both into student and staff gender neutral restrooms, so full modernizations of those, as well as doing accessibility, fire life safety, and structural improvements to that building, so we can keep that building going for another 50 to 75 years.
And just to touch on the gender neutral piece for the restrooms, we heard loud and clear from the board that the restrooms were a priority. And so as we address each building, we will be addressing maximizing as many staff and student restrooms as possible.
And just to remind everyone, the new CTE building that currently is in design also does have new gender neutral restrooms in it as well.
As well as 2 staff restrooms.
Yes. Next project is the cafeteria kitchen modernization. So the kitchen needs to be kind of fully reconfigured to allow for more on-site cooking, instead of a whole bunch of food being brought on-site and just distributed. So it's going to require kind of reconfiguring so the staff can use it more efficiently, as well as bring in the new equipment that allows them to do more on-site preparation. It also will allow us, if we can reconfigure, to kind of speed up the lines through there, because right now, you know, they kind of the Disneyland lines outside, and it takes a while to get through. So trying to expand that, modernize the interior space, and try to create more of a student gathering space. You know, possibly putting some additional covered space outside, you know, so the queuing lines could be covered, as well as on the other side towards the band room and the village. So we can kind of expand the seating area that's covered out with more covered. Look at maybe replacing some of the windows with roll-up doors, so we can expand the indoors, outdoors, and really kind of make that more of a usable space for students besides outside the lunchtime space.
Some of the things that we were thinking about when this was brought to our attention was also incorporating, we have a shade structure project for the cafeteria in mind. We have been holding off on doing it because we had to do the roofing and the HVAC first. We didn't have to want to crane anything over. And now that there's this project, trying to figure out how to reallocate those funds to this project so that it's done in a very thoughtful and meaningful way to the campus. And then we already know what this new CTE building, the culinary piece is going to be in very close proximity. So how we can tie those 2 places in together to make it a more attractive location for students to gather.
Some of the other things we're proposing to do is convert all the toilet rooms, again, to gender neutral for both staff and students. Improve all the interior finishes as well as acoustics. So we can improve acoustics, so it could be used for more functions as well. And like I said earlier, convert some of that space outside to make it more usable, as well as improve all the fire life safety and access issues on that building. The other project we're proposing is to do some modernization of the gym. The gym is one of the oldest buildings on campus. It's built into a hill, so it's a 2-story building. There is no elevator in that building. So to get from the lobby to get to the gym floor requires a long trip around and down different routes. So it's not equal access to people that are mobility impaired. So really looking at trying to find a way to get an elevator into that space is going to be pretty crucial. The floor is going to start failing pretty quick. There is some moisture issues that's going to require us tearing up that floor and replacing it. The floor itself is at its end of its usable life. They only have a certain life to them, and that one's about end. So when we start messing with the under slab and messing and changing the bleachers, it's really the best time to do it because we have everything out of the gym and we can just do it all at one time. The bleachers themselves are way past their age as well. They're getting to the point where they're unsafe. They don't meet current codes for accessibility mainly. There's no aisles in them. There's no handrails. So people have to kind of climb over each other. So it's becoming kind of a safety issue. They're harder to get in and out. They're heavier. Newer ones are all automatic. So it's time to replace those as well. Toilet rooms and locker rooms need to all be modernized as well. Both, they take a lot of abuse in high schools. And we also need to just be able to create some additional spaces to allow for gender neutral locker rooms and toilet rooms as well. Some general modernization to the acoustics, the finishes, the lighting, and then of course, as we do that, we'll improve the fire life safety and access on that building as well. Next one is the stadium. As Jenny talked about a little bit, there is some damage to some of the lines that are underneath the field that are going to require us to pull up that turf.
Right about here, if anybody could see my cursor.
It's kind of right in the middle of the
Sorry.
kind of goes almost diagonal across the logo and out under the visitor bleachers that are on the north side.
There's a couple different locations.
Yeah, a couple different ones. The field was put in 2015, the turf. The turf is fully recyclable, and the life of those fields, the artificial turf fields, are about 10 to 12 years. So we're talking these projects probably won't start till at least 2025. So we're going to be hitting that 10-year mark already. So it is in the natural cycle of when we were supposed to be replacing this carpet anyways. Like I said, it is fully recyclable, and I believe the district signed on to do that as well.
I believe our board, unless otherwise differently, we would fully intend to pay the additional cost to fully recycle.
And it's really just the carpet we're replacing. All that shock absorber that's under it, all the drainage that's under it, all that can stay multiple times. It's just the carpet that has to get replaced. The shock absorber can actually go through about 3 cycles of the carpet. So the only thing we have to do with that is just fix it when we fix the piping underneath.
And we'll have to tear up a section of the track because of where the line runs through, which is why we're discussing an overspray. Typically your tracks are you put them down once and then you overspray them several times before you have to redo the track in its entirety. And so we're well within that time frame to respray the track, but we will have to repair the part where the break is on the main drainage.
Yeah, so both the field surface and the track are kind of at that point where we need to do a little bit of maintenance just to keep up that investment. Back when we did the project, we did not do the north bleachers at that time. It was a cost savings, and we were able to make some ADA modifications to that and buy a little more life out of them. They are having some more issues at this point, and it really kind of is getting to be more of a critical need to replace those bleachers. And so we are proposing to replace those bleachers as well.
And I want to make sure everyone realizes they are safe to be on. We've had them evaluated and assessed. We did some additional bracing. We identified a sinkhole underneath the bleachers on the northwest corner where the breakage is that we were just showing you. And we did see some sagging in the bleachers, and our structural engineer came in, evaluated, gave us a recommendation, and we have braced and enforced that. So they are safe to be on. One of the issues is that the boards continually break. They're just at the point where they're at their end of their lifespan, and we're doing everything that we can to keep them functional for all events. And our one maintenance guy right before the big football push, and then right before graduation goes in and does a big maintenance on them. But it can take them 3 or 4 days to make those repairs and reinforce areas. So we are at that critical point. They should have been replaced as part of the 2015 project, but we didn't have the money at the time. So we had to engineer that out, which is why we collectively, the board, made the decision to make the repairs to them. So I just wanted a little context there that they're safe.
So kind of the next steps is we are planning to schematically design these projects in full. We know that when we do the schematic designs and we get these projects cost estimated, we're going to come up with more costs than what we can afford. But we want to fully design it in case there's additional money comes in from reimbursements or other places, that when that money comes in, we're not tearing up stuff we just did. So we want to be able to fully understand what the project is, all the design implications of it. And then when we get the cost estimates, we're able to make a project that works, and we can make it to what will fit the budget. And so it will also work with any future funds we get, that we're not tearing out stuff. So we want to fully think these projects all the way through before we pull back the scope of them and to what we can afford. So that's kind of our next step, is to kind of fully design these through the schematic design. That's only about 15% of the total design effort. So it's kind of our first pass at design. So we're not going deep down into design. We'll get them estimated. We'll come back, review those estimates, and what we proposed to do to those projects to get them within budget with the funds that we do have.
And just to touch on that just one little bit further, it was really intentional for us to do or present schematic design options for you tonight. We've already done a rough order of magnitude estimate on all of these projects, and we're at about $26 million. So we know that we don't have enough money to do what we believe is necessary for all 4 of these projects, but we wanted to keep in mind what those projects would look like if we designed them the way that we want to. And then if we phased them, if you guys recall, whether you were on the board or in the community at the time, we phased the El Molino Performing Arts Center project. We had phase 1, which was the house, and phase 2, which was the back of house. Thankfully, there was another bond measure passed, which was Measure A, that allowed us to basically do those sequentially. So as phase 1 was finishing, we were starting phase 2. So we really want to think about what the project needs are and design it correctly, and then present to you what a phased approach would be, which it could be a partial modernization of the gym, or we do this portion of the project and not this portion of the project, but that it's planned and that there's some forethought into what that could look like. So
I have a question. So on the spreadsheet you showed us, it says Measure A, unallocated funds in reserve and future bond sales available, 50 million.
Mhm.
And you just said these projects in this phase 2 is 20 million, but we don't have enough money.
you have to look at So you have to look at cash in the county treasury, which is 46 million. Then you have to look at Measure A, encumbered and budgeted projects, which is roughly 20 million, which leaves Measure A unallocated funds 26 million. And those numbers, like currently, I've not allocated those funds. So technically speaking, we have $50 million to play with, but once all of them are allocated, you have about 20. Like I'm estimating for escalation. So that's why I'm doing kind of round figures. I may overcomplicate the spreadsheet. I'm just trying to tell you guys where funds are allocated. But so if I were to, for example, let me just pull down this number right here.
So we actually have $20 million.
Look at the number now.
unallocated.
Look at the number now.
18 million. Uh-huh.
What? It's 17 million. So if you see that I just brought over, I had not put in the total estimated construction costs for project AA 36. I just did. That's roughly 32 million. Then that figure changes to 17 million. Does that make sense?
She hadn't put in all of the costs.
Right. Which is what I asked before. Okay. So there's $17 million in unencumbered funds, and this new batch of projects is 20 and climbing as things escalate.
I don't want to confuse the word unencumber with funds we don't have yet in availability. So I think I'm overcomplicating it, and I really do apologize. But we have $46 million in the treasury right now. Of that, 19 million of it is allocated. The remaining unallocated is 26 million, and we have 24 million in future sales. So I was really trying to paint a picture of where the money is, and maybe I just overly confused the situation. And for that, I apologize. We have 17 million of unallocated funds available to us when we sell Series D.
Okay.
Can
Apologies.
we have a motion and a second before we ask any more questions?
We're not done with our presentation.
Oh, I'm
We've got
sorry.
a couple more slides.
Okay, we jumped in there to the questions. All
No
right.
problem.
Sorry.
So yeah, this is kind of really the last slide. It's kind of our projected schedule. So if it's approved tonight, we'll start meeting with staff and teachers to start really doing a deep dive into these projects to figure out what programs and what needs are in each of these projects. So we have a better understanding of everything that needs to go into these projects. And from that, we'll be able to start our schematic design and really start putting pen to paper and laying out these buildings. And that'll take a couple months. Our goal is to try to wrap those up by the end of March, so we can send those off to our cost estimators that usually take 3 to 4 weeks to get us numbers. We like to review them, talk with all our different consultants, our engineering consultants, to make sure that they're seeing the same numbers that we are, and our cost estimator got everything in there. So we can be ready in May really to come back, show you the projects that are fully designed, and show you some cost estimates to those, and really start looking at what we think we can actually deliver for the funds that we do have. And from that, we can move on to those projects with the ultimate goal of hopefully starting some of these projects as early as summer of 25, starting construction. So. Any questions about that? Anything?
Hi, I have a question about like what the design of the gender neutral bathrooms and locker rooms would look like.
Sure. So with the gender neutral, they're usually really tall stalls. They're all stalls. So they're tall doors. So each compartment, it's in like a large bathroom, but each compartment is its own separate compartment. And all the sinks are open and exposed, usually either inside with direct visual to them, or sometimes even outside the restrooms to allow for better supervision. So each student has their own compartment. So that basically goes almost floor to ceiling. So anyone can see who goes in there and see, you can go. So some of the stuff that happens in restrooms is a lot more visible. So you can see who's going into compartments and who are coming out. The sinks are outside, so there's just more supervision. And so there's some of the stuff that happens in there doesn't happen anymore, but still allows for great privacy for students.
And the locker rooms?
Kind of similar thing, but they'd be their own locker rooms generally. There'd be a third locker room, a lot smaller, but compartments.
We'll have some unique challenges with dealing with our existing facilities, but that would be the goal, especially when we're designing the new restrooms. That's our intent. We may struggle a little bit with doing that exact flow with existing male and female restroom spaces. So we don't quite know what it's going to look like in our existing facilities, but that's the intent.
Okay, can we do our motion for consideration of approval of second round of Measure A bond project priorities?
I'll second.
Okay, any questions from the board? Any questions or comments from our community? Yes.
In 1910. A fun fact, I wasn't here at the time, but I have read in the yearbook in 1910, the first Anley gym was built by the woodshop class.
What? That was not DSA approved. Yeah, very cheap schematic.
I was going to say, how would you handle that one, Jenny?
I've had worse.
Any discussion from the board? Okay, we're ready to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Consideration of approval of consultant contracts with, say the name for me.
QKA.
Okay. Architects for Measure A Round 2 project priorities.
So just following off that last presentation, we are looking to start progressing forward on these projects with the schedule that we've presented. Approval of the contracts tonight with our architect for each of these would be the next step. We would issue out the contracts tomorrow and start planning and processing these after the new year because I'm realistic. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's do our motion first and then we can ask questions.
So moved.
Second. Okay, any questions from the board? Any questions or comments from our community? Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Education services. Consideration of approval of recommended revisions from CSBA October 2023 updates for policies and regulations.
So this is the second read for the listed policies, and I'll open up for any questions. If there's no questions, I recommend that the board adopt the policies as presented. We'll stay on time with our CSBA updates.
No questions? Any questions or concerns from the community? Are we ready to vote? We got to have a motion. You're right. Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the recommended revisions from CSBA.
And can I have a second? I'll second. Thank you, Sean. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion regarding preservation of El Molino historical artifacts.
Yeah, so for this discussion item, we wanted to explore how we can further that conversation We've had some conversations with Mary, some different community members. This was brought to the board in public comment at the last regular meeting. We know we have many valuable, memorable artifacts on that campus. Many of the pictures, plaques, things that really honor the traditions of El Molino High School, we intend to preserve where they currently are. I think what I'm interested is hearing, obviously, any public comment with respect to what else we can do with some of the things that are in storage, right? So it's been suggested, well, we could create a museum in one of the portables or one of the classrooms. I heard that we could bring some of that memorabilia into the library. And I'm interested in hearing the direction that the board would like to provide to me as we work with the community to further honor those traditions. When Mary suggested the El Molino Museum, you know, we talked to the site administration, Mr. Alexander, we talked to facilities and Jenny. I had conversations with Mia. We all agreed that we should have some sort of a committee around this so that we can hear from alumni and other folks that feel like that campus is near and dear to their heart. We want this to be an informed celebration of the history of the El Molino Lions and all that has happened for those families, students, alumni, and staff. So I'm going to open this up and the board can engage in a conversation. I'd like to through the discussion, give me a little bit of direction as to how to move forward with next steps.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
I just wanted to begin by saying, as a member of the facilities committee, it was discussed back maybe a year and a half ago that we wanted to do something with regards to the El Molino memorabilia. There was a plan that we wanted to do something to honor particularly our students and our staff that were coming from El Molino. And when we were going to have our original two-story building, the thought was that we might make a museum out of that building. In subsequent conversations I had with Mary and other alumni, it's something that the alumni aren't seeming to be so keen about. I'm not sure about students and staff currently. But I did want to make it clear and kind of on the record that there was something that we certainly had discussed, that it was really important. It was something that came out of the original conversations when we were considering consolidating, that that was really important that we not lose the fact that there was a lot of memorabilia that was a part of the history of El Molino, and that it was really important that that not get lost and not disappear. So I did want to make that really clear to the board and to the community that that was a very important piece of the puzzle. And I concur. I think it's a really important discussion to be had. I like the idea of putting together a committee of alumni and maybe some staff people to have that conversation about, you know, what the community's thoughts are, and maybe include some students on it. So, and maybe one of them might include Karis. She comes from that part of the community, and so that we get a flavor and a view of what the people from our far west community are thinking and feeling. But I did want to make sure that it was clear that it's something that the facilities committee was certainly thinking about, and was clear on our vision that we weren't, you know, ignoring the fact that there was a lot of, you know, memorabilia and you know, other things that might, you know, come from that. I do know I have a name, and when we get to that point, if that's something the rest of the board wants to consider, I have someone that's an actually former El Molino student and alumnus that is actually interested in possibly serving on the committee. So
I
that's
have
just
a
my thought.
question. The library was brought up, seems like a logical place over there. Is there, because I don't remember, is there like a display case and shelving and that type of thing that would be appropriate at the library? At the Forestville
Yes.
campus?
Yes, there is some display cases there. I would be concerned about it being in the library because of how large the library is and how vastly it's used by community use. And now we're using it for our board meetings. The intent would be, what I understood the intent would be for like the alumni, if they had a reunion coming up, we would give them a key code access because we're one of those cool key codes, and that they could go in and do tours and kind of take a trip down memory lane. And so I'm not necessarily sure we would want to do that in the library space, which is in a corridor area, versus an exterior classroom access only. That's just my 2 cents. Obviously happy to serve whatever need is decided, but yeah, there are display cases in there. There's not a huge amount.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, I agree with Jenny that if it's we were thinking to have like access at all times, right, for different events. And I think if we do land on the library, that would be of concern as well. And looking at building the community school, that will be the hub of the new program, or would be where the classrooms are down there and in that library. But I do know there's adequate space. So I think that would be the caveat, right? If we designated an area of our beautiful library to honor and preserve and showcase historical memorabilia, I think that would be the give, right? We wouldn't be able to provide a key code access to that facility. Whereas if we consider doing it one of the vacant classrooms, I think it would be a little bit more responsible that we then could provide that access to the community and alumni. So 100% agree with Jenny. Any other questions or thoughts from the board?
How much memorabilia are we talking about? You said
That's a great question. I know that I've heard from a number of current staff, alum, former staff, that the interest of many seems to be to leave a lot of the memorabilia that's up and showcasing where it is historically. The pictures on the wall, right? The California Distinguished School plaques, the wood historical marquee, things that are of noted historical value. My recommendation is you don't move that stuff. In terms of what's in storage and what could become something to display, something to honor, something to celebrate, something to visit, I'll defer to Jenny.
Well, I don't know how, I'm a Santa Rosa High School alum, and I don't know how many of you are aware, but they have a museum on campus. It is not huge. It's a relatively small, I think it's upstairs, if I recall correctly, in this random room that I never knew about. It's the former business office. So it is that random room that I remember getting my graduation tickets from. So it is not a large space, and they have done a phenomenal job of memorializing some really cool stuff. So I would suggest that we go take a look at what they've done and what they've chosen to catalog and memorialize, and see how we could replicate something like that. I think we have bigger possibilities for it to be larger as we have available real estate to be able to put it in a classroom and maybe do more, or whatever our flavor chooses to be. I think it could be really great, but I don't know much about what would or should be memorialized, but I know that Santa Rosa has a beautiful space, and I would certainly suggest that we go take a look at it and learn from people who have already done it.
the only other more of a comment is that I think it's important to preserve the murals that are on campus as well. There's a big one in the quad, and
100%.
There's some other smaller ones.
And I just want to say I agree with preserving everything, but I think that we need to recognize Lagunas at that campus as well.
Thank you.
I know the kids would like to have a Laguna sign up so that they feel like it's their school as well. So I think we have to keep that in mind, that we need to honor the kids that are there as well.
No, I really appreciate that because that was something that Greg suggested. You know, I know that the temporary banner was temporary. The students there have built a home. They're creating a culture. They're building their program. And so I had mentioned it to Jenny, and we would need some direction from the board to move forward with some branding. So I'm hearing that's of interest. We can look at some quotes because I'm thinking that we want something permanent while also preserving some of the things that are still El Molino, because as I mentioned, when discussing the community school project, my suggestion and recommendation to the board, the community, would be whatever we do from an educational program, that we'd honor the El Molino name with that community school. So it's two schools under one roof is the long-term vision. I think we need some permanent signage to recognize the Laguna Rhinos.
Go ahead, Lou.
Two things. One is, yeah, I totally agree that we need proper signage for Laguna, like something that looks permanent, not temporary. Really, it's a symbol and it's important. And then otherwise, this whole issue of the El Molino memorabilia I think it's really important, but I really would hope that the planning and brainstorming and decisions around it come from that community, and that we don't assume as a board that we can decide what's best for them.
Agreed.
It's just perpetuating that old thing.
Right.
So I don't know how that happens. I don't know how you get really a broad section of El Molino community. I do think we have a number of teachers here that taught there. That's a really good resource. They have great insight into that whole situation. But let's somehow figure out how to get really good community input and let that drive what it's going to be. I think what's really important tonight is that it's clear that the board has really open intentions to honor this. And so let's take that intention and let others figure out the details.
Thank you. I think that what I would recommend is you give us authorization to formulate that committee. We work on that separately from what will then inform the community school, the educational program, the name of the program, right? We're kind of, I brought that in as just another separate thought of what the future of that campus looks like. I think that the committee would be formed with folks that you just recommended, right? So that it informs where we go in terms of honoring the traditions of El Molino. And then through the needs assessment, gap analysis with regard to the community school, all of that input will be taken into account as we build out that program from the education to what we call.
So in terms of a committee, to determine, the best museum situation, which is really the core of what we're talking about here. It sounds like some of the things that committee would be tasked with would be identifying how much space is required, and then identifying locations that are viable for that, and then bringing that back to the board. So how much time do you think that it will take to pull a committee together? How many meetings do you think would be required to assess that? And because we have some meetings coming up in March and May at that campus, it might be nice to be able to maybe not necessarily make final decisions, but show these are some of the things the committee is now recommending.
I think that's great, Debbie. You really just helped to clear my timeline. I think that that's reasonable. I think I can't promise that we'll be ready to make recommendations, but I think we can commit to at least in March providing the board an update with regard to the committee and any progress that committee's made. I'll talk with our staff and our folks in terms of representation and how we draw that out and make sure that we invite and have a well-represented group on that committee. And we'll come back in as early as March, and we can talk that through in agenda setting. And if there's progress that's fast, I can provide the board snippets of that in my SOUPS report during my monthly updates.
And I'd like to take comments from the community. Go ahead, Julie.
Microphone.
We need you on a
For
mic.
the
Hello.
Chris, I will reach out to you with the name that I have.
So my name is Julie McClelland, and I was on the committee during consolidation that looked at all the historical things on both campuses. Myself, Chris Kahn was from Emelino, Carmen Sanjani was on that committee, and we documented everything. So that should all be there of what's where. Yeah, so just, I'd be interested in being on that committee.
Hi, I'm Loretta. And I worked, I was the bird dog who kept saying nothing needed to be painted over. And I was working with Emelino people at the same time. And as far as the community sentiment was, both communities didn't want any of the murals touched. And that was really important. And so when we came back this last year, the Anley Alumni Association has been paying to have all of the murals replaced that were painted over. So I think that is a big item in the whole general community, that those murals need to be saved.
I'm Linda Helton. I think Santa Rosa High School, I'm pretty sure that whole that whole room is generated by their alumni association. Yeah, it's a big job. And it's a continuing, I don't know, people from Santa Rosa High School that are here. I mean, that's a major organization which continues. And a committee's great for the short term, but you're not going to have, it's not going to be, this is not a short term project. This is a long-term project. And it's the same thing. Emelino has a lot of things that are valuable to them, just as the things that are here for those of us that were at Emily were valuable. And a lot of our stuff is put away too, because there's just no room for our banners and a lot of the old trophies and things. So I would hope that whatever we generate for Emelino, it's going to be the group that can continue the process of updating things, turn up. Amazing what people have in their garages at home, and as you're cleaning out dad's stuff after he passes, you have a basketball signed by a team that won the state or not, the FBL championship or something. So I really hope that it's not just a small committee; it has to continue for the benefit of everybody.
I think that's a good point, that whatever the committee comes up with has to be sustainable. I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah, I would intend to reach out to members of the Emelino Alumni Foundation and look at getting some representatives. The Booster Club. Okay, the Booster Club. Okay. Well, the group of alumni. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think I have my marching orders.
Consideration of approval of new course request, Earth, Space, and Environmental Science.
Well, first I'd like to thank Kim, who's here tonight, for working with her department and recommending this this new course. I'm really excited about it. I believe that students need options, and I think it was really thoughtful how the department built this course, the intent of the course, and the options and different pathways for completing science requirements, and also post-secondary goals for students through this new course. So I'll open up for any questions. I think that it clearly outlines what the course will look like. Kim and the department are in the process of looking at curriculum, and we'll be hopefully able to purchase that curriculum or get it to the board for a first read and get that in the mix and have it in place for next year. But I'm confident because we're well ahead of where we need to be to implement this new course in the fall. Any questions?
Actually, we're going to take a motion first and then do questions.
There you go.
Can I have a motion for the approval of new course request Earth, Space, Environmental Science? You want to second it, Louis? Great. Now we are open for questions.
That's awesome. I want to take it.
I know, I do too. No questions? I'm sorry, go ahead. Say who you are and use the mic, please.
Hi, I'm Kim McCory. I'm the department chair of the science department, and I'm with Taylor Dobbins, our chemistry teacher. So we designed the course together, and we just wanted to be here to be available to answer questions if you guys had them.
Are there any questions or concerns from the community? Any discussion from the board? Oh, I'm sorry, Lily.
No, we don't. Well, it's really okay. We just wanted to be here to support and to be available. if
Thank
questions
you
were-
so much for being here. We really do appreciate it.
I can ask you a question. Okay. Hope I don't stump you. What was your motivation for developing this course?
Our motivation in developing this course recently, California State Standards changed to an NGSS science standard, and that went to a 3-course model where we teach biology, chemistry, and then physics, or physics and then chemistry. And in the past few years, students have been really struggling with the rigor of chemistry and physics and the math requirement of those courses. And we want to be able to maintain that rigor for our college-bound students, but provide a course that is interesting to all students, because students are usually interested in the earth and the environment, those type of things, that had a little less math requirement to help our students who needed to fulfill physical science graduation requirements.
I'm going to say thank you for those types of students just like me that just struggled terribly with that chemistry and physics requirement.
I second that. Greg, did you have something you wanted to say?
Thank you.
And I'd like to add that while Kim recognized that, the traditional pathway that we've had supports students that are college bound, some students are late bloomers. So maybe they take this course, they grow, they get better, and then they can continue to take other science courses. And maybe they weren't deemed a college bound kid when they came in as a freshman, but they can definitely adjust their courses through their course selection process and show that they can align their skills with the merit and the rigor of those college bound classes. So I want to make sure that it's not seen as tracking and here's our college kids, but it's an option for kids that maybe need further development, right? Maybe need more time, but that can ultimately have post-secondary options.
We are also applying for it to be a D-Lab science, so it would be UC transferable. We obviously have to wait for February to submit that and for it to be board approval. I kind of had my best friend in mind when I thought of that as being a D class, to be totally honest, because she kind of almost didn't go to college because of chemistry. And she currently has an MBA, and she runs the top, like an international business. So I just thought of her when we kind of needed a course, even for students who are college bound, but maybe had strengths in other areas.
That's awesome.
It was my struggle. I have to tell you, it was my struggle tremendously. I had so many credits in psychology and social science and all of that kind of stuff, because that's kind of where my brain goes. But when it came to the math and science stuff, I made it through, but by the skin of my teeth. And something like this would have just been such a treat, because I would have enjoyed this and would have done really well. And
Yeah, our goal is to kind of tap into student interests, because of, students historically are interested in the world around them.
Great. Are we ready to vote?
I just want to add a thank you. That this is really in alignment with so many things that I think this board is trying to do. and sensitivities around addressing all the different kinds of learners. So thank you. This is really great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Business Services, consideration of approval of the 2023-2024 first interim budget report. You're up.
right. Well, tonight we bring you, as the cycle continues of the budget, our first interim report, which reflects all expenditures up through October 31st. And then everything else beyond November through June is estimates. And then again, we'll be back in March to do the second interim. That kind of gives the next update of where we're at. Our budget really is the reflection of our goals and objectives to what we want to do. And overall, it's about student academic achievement. And so that's really the core focus of what our budget is here. And it takes it from the students to everything that is required to operate and ensure student academic achievement. The first interim that we need to ensure either a positive, qualified, or negative certification that we would be able to meet our financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. Again, we bring a positive first interim certification for the board's approval tonight. Once, oh, I'm sorry, I'm like, yeah.
Because they're telling me at home that they can't see the slideshow.
Sorry. I think the next part is just not numbers or anything. It's just kind of as we continue to look at that budget, now we will submit it to the county for them to review, and then they do their reviews, and then they push it on to the state for their approval. For first interim, we look at taking that additional carryover funds that were not booked at budget due to accounting regulations for government accounting for the schools. So we've rebooked some of those funds that don't have fund balance and then into current budget. Review the revenue, what has come in, what are the new grant awards, what are the grant award estimates that now are coming out, and the finalization of those numbers for the current year. Looking at staffing and salaries and adjusting those to what are the actuals that have happened now that staff has been hired, they're placed. We know what's happening, with health insurance and all the different things that are going on. All right, so as what drives our funding really is our enrollment, and from that is our average daily attendance. Regardless of what our enrollment is, we need to get the students here to school to ensure that we're getting our revenue from our average daily attendance of how we're funded. This slide includes all of the district's enrollment, including the consortium TK through 8th grade, all the high school enrollment, including our non-public school placements and the students that are placed at SCO. So when we look at this is all of their numbers. Enrollment this year, we've talked about, has where we were at budget, came in higher for our October census day. We're at 1573. And then as we looked at the incoming 8th graders and our partner districts enrollment, their enrollment has also increased this year. We were talking with the superintendents today, and they said that their students are coming, where they're coming from, but they're growing. Harmony received 10 additional students the past couple of months. So we're seeing this trend of students coming to West County. So as we look at those and kind of just adjusted the numbers, originally we were at a low 60%. Now we're saying we're probably about 78% of the students, closer to where in the past it was 80%. They said 8th grade, 80% of 8th graders would enroll as 9th graders. This year was 78%. So we took that number, used that for our enrollment calculations for first interim. And as you see, we kind of remain flat funding for flat enrollment for next year. And then in 25-26, we increase. The current 11th graders, when they graduate in 25, It's about 328 students, our current 339 11th graders. And as they matriculate, and some students will drop out next year, there's not drop out, but as they, move or go someplace else, but not enroll next year here, estimated 328 students, 12th graders will be here. By the incoming 9th grade in 26, there's about 388 students. And we have had some additional, even today, some interdistrict transfers come. So our 9th grade classes are getting closer to that 400 mark, and if not larger. So that we've seen small classes, now we're seeing these larger classes coming in behind these smaller classes. So yes, so we're hopefully that projection is there, and it stays there. We are working with the demographer to kind of update where those enrollment projections are, to adjust to what happened this year, how that plays to account for the future years coming out. You see the current ADA to what our current actual ADA is, and that's again is of the entire district enrollment that we're responsible for. And then we are the funded ADA. Currently, we're funded on that 3-year rolling average. Well, as the COVID hold harmless ADA falls out next year, we actually fall into the being funded on the prior year. And then again in 25, 26 funded on prior year ADA. So as enrollment increases, decreases will depend on how that, what you're going to get funded on. And you see our unduplicated percentages there that funds our supplemental funding. No, so you're funded either on current year, prior year, or the 3-year rolling average, whatever is higher. Yep. So, and we put those numbers into the local control funding formula calculator, and that kind of puts that out there. And then as we do our attendance reporting, month 5 is our P2 attendance reporting period. That closes on the 22nd, last day of school, and it's due to SCO on the 8th. So it's a really quick turnaround. So yeah, so it's like, how do we get all that? But we're working through that. We look at the local control funding formula, and at first interim, SCO still allows us to use the original cost of living adjustment projections that were put out by the Department of Finance, the California Department of Finance, at 394 for 24-25 and 329 for 25-26. Well, as you have heard, the Legislative Analyst's Office has come out, and they are now projecting for next year, 24-25, a 1.27 COLA. So that's going to be a reduction from that 394. So although we've been allowed at first interim to use that higher number, you see that if we had that 329 next year, we would lose the revenue next year would be less $140,000. So even though that projection was 394, new income would be less 0.65%. So even though COLA is, and they fund the amount you get per ADA, because our ADA is lowering, we're not getting all of that revenue that they're saying that, education funding is the highest, well, as it's funded based on ADA, we don't receive it. You see for this year, we did have that increase about 465,000, and we had the 8.22 COLA. We received new revenue of 2.18%. So that only generated 2.18% new revenue coming into us currently. And then you see what happens in 25-26. Well, take that projection and set it aside because it's no longer accurate. We looked at what the LAO was saying, with everything staying out. They don't know what that new COLA is going to come out to be. When the January budget governor releases, he'll have another data point set. projecting to that 1.27 for next year. But we did a LCFF calculator comparison and just said, what if we received zero COLA? It's an immediate loss of almost $1 million. If we go to just how that matriculates in funding, that's what happens. So originally a loss of $140,000, now to almost a loss of $1 million with a zero COLA. We know zero COLA is not going to happen. It's going to be something. I'm going to say it's not going to happen if they keep saying 1%, and that's been about what it is. So if we had zero COLA over the next 2 years, you see what that does to revenue. It goes down. If we do take that 1.27 and put it in there, we lose almost $700,000 next year if enrollment and ADA stay the same, nothing else changes. That's what our revenue looks like. And then for the following year, they haven't really said what 25-26 is going to look like, but word on the street is that it could be 2%. So if we take that 1.27 and do the 2%, you see what happens to our revenue. $700,000 loss next year, and then we kind of become equal again and gain that almost 400,000. So even that 1.27 we lose, we don't get the income, we lose 3.3% in revenue. The following year, if we say it's 2% COLA, we only get 1.79% in new revenue. So COLA doesn't actually equal what we actually receive. So if we just take right now and look at the current revenue as it's projected with the first interim allowances, our total revenue comes in at 32 million, and then we have the out years at 30 million, 31 million. The LCFF revenue that's here on this slide includes the special ed property tax that's passed through to us from SELPA. That's about 277,000. So if you look at the two slides and go, why does that not match? That's why it doesn't match. And then we look at the expenditures for this year, and this is kind of based off of where we were as of October. We're at 32.2 million this year in total expenditures. And where these expenditures are higher is that we're spending down the restricted dollars that have been received in prior years that had multiple year funding plans. And some of those funds were given to us all up front. And so now as those monies have been sitting in the county treasury, we have a budget plan for them, we're spending them. So we have that higher expenditure that's providing a small deficit when we combine the unrestricted and restricted monies. And then you see the 2 out years of what happens there. Additionally, next we have the transfers into the general fund from the Reserve for Capital Outlay, our Fund 40. Again, this is the 65,000 that gets transferred over to help fund the routine restricted maintenance account. 65,000 has been always there. We may want to talk about if we need to shift an additional amount out of Fund 40. What's the plans for Fund 40? That the set aside really has been to help pay for the recarpeting of the field. So, what do we need there? What else is available to help the general fund? As we look at the assumptions, again, the cost of living and how it's been applied to current first interim. We looked at step and column for the out years for the certificate classified, applied those. Health benefits, although they continue to rise at a high rate, we're at 8%. When you average it out to where people, what plans they pick, where they land, and what's that, it equals out to about 5% year over year. CalSTRS is remaining flat or not increasing. It's at 19.1%, and that still continued to be projected out for the next 2 years. CalPERS, did provide a small increase to CalPERS based off of their last fall evaluation, the one they just released. So we'll have those new updates for second interim. They're small, but any amount that they increase, it does take away from other things we can do. And then, of course, looking at books and supplies as we look into those out years of what is the 3%, just providing some additional dollar amounts in those funding. And then we always have the concern of special education and the rising costs there, and how do we provide the services that are needed to support our students. So we take that into account. And then in the out years, as we look at things, what are the one-time funds, take those out and make those adjustments for a multi-year projection. Our biggest assumptions that we need to consider is staffing. This is the backbone to our student achievement. And from budget adoption to first interim, we've looked at the enrollment. What is the academic program that we have? We're building a great academic program for our students. We need to maintain that. How can we continue to maintain that at our current enrollment rate, at our current funding rate? So we looked and from budget adoption, where we had 7 certificated staff as a reduction over the next 2 years, we reduced that to 5. And for classified, it was 3.5 FTE, and we reduced that to 2 for over the next 2 years. We're hoping that with the funding that we have, program need, student enrollment, ADA, that can be revised as we continue to get closer to actual numbers. What's happening was our program for our students. So you see how that happens over those next 2 years. As required, we have to have a multi-year projection to turn in that looks at our current year and our 2 next subsequent years. Our beginning balances are healthy. And Chris and I actually looked at the 21 first interim, and that was, I think we were had $1,000 in. It was small, that was just the time before they even provided all this additional funding at the state level, one-time funds and such. So I want to say that we're really looking good, but we know we're coming into times that we really need to start evaluating what's happening, because the money's not coming in as it used to over the past couple of years. As we look at the beginning balance, the income, the expenditures that are going out, that you see that small deficit in 23-24. Again, that's not a structural deficit. This is a deficit because we're spending those funds down from our restricted dollars. So this is the combine of unrestricted, restricted. And again, for 24-25 and then 25-26, as those funds go out of, those one-time funds are really fully expended, we balance out with what's happening. And then as we look down, the 3% reserve, which is just the mandatory for the state, for our district, what our total expenditures are. The restricted reserves, those are the monies that are in that those additional programs that have strings attached to them. That almost $4 million. Then we have our other designated reserves, and if we when we go to the next page, we'll see, show you how that breaks down. But if we take that combined unappropriated reserve to each year, those about $6 million. Those are the funds that aren't assigned to anything. That is truly available funds for us to decide with what's next to support student academic achievement. And to really see, so you take that $6 million for this year and almost $1 million in that 3%, and combine that compared to that total expenditure, it's just over 20% that we have available. That's where the state is, or how when you calculate those $2 amounts is where what is a true available funds that you have, even though you can't really spend the 3% reserve. So you see, we have a positive unappropriated amount for the next current year and the next 2 years. That's what provides that our availability to have a positive certification. I provided the ending fund balance and what it looks like for each year right now of how that's designated out. Our LCF supplemental, we receive that as part of the unrestricted dollars, but it really has to stay for the unappropriated or the supplemental funding. Each year we tend to spend that. Some things have happened. We've had some shifts in additional funds that came in. So we've been able, especially around transportation. Transportation is starting to get more funding. So we've been able to shift some dollars around, and we'll need to readdress current year LCFF funding and what we're doing and making sure that we can spend those dollars down. And then we have the reserve for textbooks, 200,000, and the reserve for special education, 500,000 in current year and in the next 2 years. In the next 2 years, you see the recommendation for reserve for future revenue loss of $1 million, because as you see with that current COLA that is not going to materialize, we need to say, hey, $1 million somewhere from zero COLA to 127, something has to come out. So if we just say zero is going to come out, let's just put $1 million there. It's going to change the unappropriated amount down at the bottom. So if we would have left that $1 million and not recognized it, that would increase that to show, well, you had $7 million at first interim. But we already know that it wasn't going to materialize. So we need to take it out or set it aside to say, hey, we're going to have to make some sort of adjustment, and we'll see that adjustment at second interim. And the same for year 3. Or the second subsequent year. The revenue, if it was at current allowable first interim, that second year would have been 700,000 in additional revenue that we know it from 0 to 2% needs to come out. So we just say, let's just leave it at 0, set that aside, and we know something is going to materialize, and Department of Finance and the school services, once they provide us the school dartboard, will know kind of what that looks like for second interim, and then again at budget development when it comes into May. Cash flow continues to be positive. And another subsequent measure of district fiscal solvency. I gotta have the cash to pay the bills. So as we look for just the continued upcoming budget cycle in January, the governor will release his budget January 10th. We will go to the school services governor's workshop on January 17th in Sacramento to hear their what's been proposed by the governor. Audited financial statements for last year will be presented next month as well. We have that, and then we'll kind of go through that cycle again, provide the same update for our March 15th meeting, and then just kind of start working on that budget development of what's going to happen for next year. Along with what's going on with the LCAP, the governor will release his May revise, and that final May revise is really what our budget is built off of, even though the state budget hasn't been adopted. And then the legislature will make their adoption in June, and then work through their trailer bills, and we'll have something finalized hopefully quickly and go from there. And then we'll come back in June with next year's budget and LCAP adoption. Our budget thoughts as we continue to move along, always our labor partner negotiations and how we can take what we have and continue to work together to address our labor partner negotiations. Looking at any economic or uncertainties. We have a fund right now, but always that minimum of 3% is just not enough. So we need to continue to put that out and how we address that. Uncertainties around enrollment. We can always guess, but are we stable? Are we declining? Hopefully we're increasing. And that's where we kind of look like we're headed now. We don't want any structural deficits. STRS is looking pretty flat. A concern for PERS as it's reliant on the markets and what they're doing. Utility costs, as we all know, what's happening with those cost of goods and services, again, special education costs. As we just continue to move forward, but right now we are looking for an approval of a positive certification for first interim.
So Andrew, stepping back, thank you for this, by the way. So if you look at the enrollment, it actually, so what I'm curious about is the 2 years out from now, because enrollment ticks back up, which is because we have a bigger incoming freshman class, which is fabulous. By the way, Chris, you know this, but anything we can do to increase enrollment, like Karis mentioned that they're leading tours, like anything we can do to make those tours fabulous, right? You know, give them lunch, give them whatever. So enrollment ticks back up, but the funded ADA remains low because of how that's all just
right.
Why then do we, by the second year out, why do we continue to look better in terms of fund balances and revenue versus expenditures? It's just surprising that those numbers, they tail down next year and then they bounce back up.
Yeah.
Where's that coming from? Because enrollments, even though it's better, it's not helping us because of the funded ADA.
The increase of the actual funded dollar amount, and even though it's staying flat, you're being funded on prior year. So those dollar amounts, when you do the calculator, it just kind of tells you where that calculation gets in there. So we have an increase. It goes down a little bit, but you're still increasing in that cost of living goes up. So if we look at the next,
which might be zero though.
Hopefully 25, 26 wouldn't be zero. You know, so we still get that 1.79 in new revenue. If we look at the 1.2 on the 6th slide, if COLA was 2%, we would still receive 1.79 in additional new revenue because of the way the funding, the
additional over the year before.
Additional over the yes, over
the year before, which was a down year.
No, the 376,000.
Yeah. That's the
is new, yeah, should be over the year before.
It's only 150,000.
Yeah, I can look at it, but
All right.
it's still
I'm
over.
just trying to get in the big
Yeah.
picture, like if you step really back, what's driving? What are the big drivers? Enrollment, the way the funded ADA thing
It's the
actually
funded ADA,
works.
yeah.
Cost of living, which may or may not do anything for us. We're spending down restricted money, which is great, but it's not, there's no new money coming in like that.
I think if you look at the MYP, negative 0.825.
What slide are you on?
0.67. Number 12. That might help you. Yeah. And showing the percent change in revenue, because I think that directly correlates to that unappropriated amount down below.
Right. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
They fund the LCFF and they fund the dollar amounts per enrollment, or not per enrollment, but per grade span. And so that still increases, even though we have that slight dip, you still had an increase in the dollar amount that you're going to be receiving. So you got $1 last year, you got $1.25 this year. So you're funded on 100. You're still funded on 100, but you get that 25 cents still more. So there's still an increase, even though you had a slight decrease.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions, comments from the community? Lily?
Thank you for the measured response about the need for future cuts in staffing. I really appreciate that because in years past, that is always where we look when budget issues are concerning. And with enrollment staying strong, we need every person here. I would like to know more, or maybe to encourage a plan to address the attendance issue. I feel like since I've started working here, I've been in 4 different school districts in 3 different states. And in this one, we've been very complacent about attendance because historically we've had very good attendance in this district. Then the pandemic hit and we haven't had much of a response, I would say. We're even down from 2 to 1 keeping kids in school, staffers working on dire attendance, student concerns. We need initiatives on this. We need an administrator whose focus is on attendance. We need to be hearing it publicized with the students. They don't know that we care. They don't think it's a big deal if they miss school. I have parents routinely pulling kids out for vacations. There's a little O on Aries all the time, which means other, which means an unexcused absence reason for missing school. Are we communicating with those parents how much we are losing in funding because their students not at school that day? Do they know that exact dollar amount that Disneyland vacation is costing the school district in polite but firm terms? Are we reaching out through the phone or through email or in any way to anyone who has an O on their attendance? Are we holding parent meetings just around attendance that are not about grades or special education concerns? Are we giving students awards for good attendance? Are we publicizing those in our video announcements? Are we having any sort of competition between the grade levels about their attendance rates, just publicizing it to be like the freshmen are crushing the juniors this week with their attendance. Thank you so much for your dedication to the school. The future looks bright. Those kinds of statements give a culture of concern around attendance to the students. But we need to be proactive on this the way that we have been with recruiting students. We saw how well all that extra effort went in bumping up our enrollment this year. If we did the same with attendance, we could recover a lot of this money. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Yeah, very good points indeed. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you, Andrew. Human Resources, consideration of approval of monthly personnel report.
Do you want me to, you don't want to take a vote or a motion? I'm going to start. Okay. I'm still getting used to the new process. Okay. So I do have one addition to the personnel report, and that is Lana McNamara for being the coordinator for the literary magazine. You got a copy of that tonight. So that's the only addition to the personnel report that I have.
Now I need a motion.
I move that we approve the personnel report.
Second. Thank you, Sean. Any questions from the board? Questions from the community? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consideration of approval of a memorandum of understanding between West Sonoma County Teachers Association and West Sonoma County Union High School District. for an annual stipend for a head flag football and assistant coach.
Yes, so this is pretty exciting. So we started a flag football team at Anley this year. So we needed a head coach and an assistant. And we had 45 students that participated on this team this year. And the coaches actually were our own employees. One of them is one of our bilingual paraeducators, and the other one is actually new, one of our new campus supervisors. So we entered into an MOU with the teachers union to add this stipend for both of those coaches.
I need a motion.
I move that we approve the stipend for the head football coach and the assistant coach.
Second?
I'll second.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. Any questions from the board? Questions, concerns from the community? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between West Sonoma County Teachers Association and West Sonoma County Union High School District in regards to a 1.20 FTE assignment for Zachary Morris.
Yes, so we entered into an MOU with the teachers union to provide a 1.2 assignment to Zach Morris. And the reason why we did this is that the program that he teaches is a very complex program, and it's difficult for us to find a teacher to cover a section for him, so he has prep time. So we talked to Mr. Morris about it, and he said that he would be willing to go to a 1.2. So we entered into an MOU with the Teachers Association. And this actually is retro back to the beginning of the school year for him.
And I need a motion and a second. Thanks, Sean. Any questions? The school board? Questions from the community? Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between classified school employees group and West Sonoma County Union High School District in regards to volunteer work and construction projects.
Yes, so in the classified contract, there's a clause in there that if there's a volunteer group or an individual that wants to come on the campus and do any work, we can enter into an agreement with CSEA. And in this particular instance, there's a couple individuals that are going to come in and remove the vines, the vineyard at Anley High School, and get the soil ready so they can use it for the ag program for planting crops and a garden. So just happens to be Emily Locke's husband and one of his employees that are going to come in and do this work over the winter break. So it'll be ready for the students when they come back after winter break in January.
Great. And I need a motion. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Questions from the community? We can vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Oh, good. Do we have anything else we need to discuss? All right, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Woo.